So at least six firefighters have died while battling a blaze in Boston in KwaZulu-Natal. 3 members initially died while responding to a runaway fire on the R617 in Mpophomeni. The Midlands Emergency Medical Services confirmed that 3 others who were hospitalised also succumbed to their injuries. 2 others remain in a critical condition. Let's now get an update with Roland Robertson, who is with the EMS Midlands. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. Can we just get a quick update in terms of the situation currently in the province and also some of the areas where you are focusing on as EMS services?
Yes, 100%. We are around for all the fires that have been happening in this area for the last couple of weeks. And we have been attending to majority of them just as a backup support.
Yeah. What's the situation currently?
Currently, everything's under control at the moment. Luckily, last night there was a lot of rain that we had from about 12 o'clock last night. So a lot of the fires that were still lingering around have been put out.
Okay. We also see that the reports indicating that 6 firefighters died, 2 still in a critical condition in a hospital. Do you have any update with regards to that?
Yeah, so initially on scene, we had 3 that passed away on scene. And then we put another 3 on ventilators on the scene, with 2 as well just being not as bad on the scene that also got taken through. And unfortunately, the 3 that got placed on ventilators passed away shortly after arriving at hospital.
Mm-hmm. And the 2 are still in hospital, the 2 others?
Yes, one is still on a ventilator at the moment and the other one's in ICU.
Okay. And then when we speak about civilians, what do we know about injuries that have been sustained there and the fatalities, if any?
Well, as of yesterday's one, there was no civilians as such. They were all a contracting company to another company. So the civilian side, we don't have anything on our side to report for.
Okay. So what's the major issue now going into this week, considering that you say at least that there was rain? Are there any concerns, any pressure points perhaps that we should alert our viewers to?
Yeah, well, 100%. The fires can come back at any point if the weather starts to increase again and the heat comes back. Everything's so dry that everything can just burn again.
Mm-hmm. And we don't know what caused this particular fire?
No, well, apparently there was some poachers that did start the fire and they tried to do a back burn and unfortunately the wind turned for them and caught them in like a valley.
Yeah, and they managed to survive?
No, those were yesterday. The ones that survived managed to run out, but they still got burned.
They still got burned. Okay, then thank you so much for that update. Really appreciate it. That is Roland there speaking to us about the conditions currently in KZN, various areas, of course, that have been affected by the wildfires. We're hoping to speak to Chris Pappas as well, who's the mayor of Umngeni Municipality, listening into some of the concerns that have been raised by some emergency services personnel in that the firefighters are not fully equipped to deal with such situations. Okay, so he has joined. Let's now get him in. Mayor Chris Pappas, good morning. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning.
Thanks very much for having me.
We just got off the line with Roland from the EMS services, but I'd like to hear your perspective as the mayor of Umngeni. What's the situation like?
Yeah, firstly, just to thank Roland and his team. Yesterday when they arrived, they actually had to drive through the fire to be able to get to the firefighters, putting their lives in danger as well. So thank you very much to him and his team. I'm sure you've heard that 3 more have passed away since last night, or since yesterday afternoon. So we do send our condolences to the families. But there have been, for the past about 2 weeks now, very adverse fire conditions in the Midlands area, but also in KwaZulu-Natal as a whole. And this obviously increases the risk incredibly when it comes to fighting fires, but also the chances of weather conditions changing at any time and making the fighting of those fires incredibly dangerous. And that's part of what happened yesterday, we suspect, when we listen to what eyewitnesses have to say.
Yeah, and one of the concerns also raised, at least by the Umlalazi spokesperson as well, is that the firefighters are not adequately equipped to deal with such fires. Is that your observation as well as a member of the executive in the Umngeni municipality?
So, yes, but I just wanted to be clear on this one first before I expand on that. Yep. So the fire that happened yesterday was being fought by a number of different people. There was Sappi Forestry and their contractors. There was the Lions River Fire Protection Association, the KwaZulu-Natal Fire Protection Aviation Wing. There was local farmers. There was a number of people, the Umngeni District Municipality. And so there was a number of people who were fighting this. It wasn't just government firefighters, if you want to put it that way. But to answer your question, yes, I think KwaZulu-Natal in general, and I can speak from the Umngeni district side, there's a severe undercapacity of our disaster management in general, but definitely fire and rescue. I'm sure if Roland is still on the line, he would bear testament. There are a number of occasions where, for example, there are accidents on the roads. Or situations where you require specialized equipment, and the government agencies that are required to provide this equipment, that equipment doesn't work or doesn't show up. It takes too long to get there. I know as a municipality, we rely on fire services from a different level of government. And when we have our landfill site catch on fire, as an example, we rely on the private sector to come and assist us because we can't rely on those agencies. And it's not a fault of the firefighters themselves. They're highly trained and dedicated individuals, but it's just a matter of the management of those entities.
Yep.
And the resources that are dedicated to making them work.
Sure, and I know that investigations will still go underway to determine the cause of death, at least with all 6, and if it could have been prevented. But just thinking about somebody who works in such a volatile environment with the dangers that they face, and that particular individual not being fully equipped, now their lives are also at risk. And here we're speaking about somebody that is employed, and the Occupational Health Act is in place to ensure that you must make sure that your staff members are protected.
Yeah, absolutely. So these particular firefighters were contract firefighters, seasonal firefighters. I do believe that they are, the safety standards that they are employed under and the contracts that they have are very stringent, considering, if you think about the fires that have taken place over the last 2 weeks across the country, some of the companies like Sappi or Mondi have not lost any individuals. It is always sad when you do lose people, and those investigations must prove whether or not there has been negligence or any undertraining. But I do believe that when you are a firefighter or you are a policeman, a soldier, a service person, and you do go to work every day, specifically something like firefighting, you do run the risk of not returning home, and that's not an excuse for negligence. And it is sad when that happens. But we must make sure that if there is negligence, or if there is anything that did go wrong that could have been prevented, that is prevented in future, and that those who are responsible are held accountable. But just in terms of this particular fire, it's believed that it was started by poachers at the bottom of the valley. It is common during the winter time that poachers light fires to the veld to try and drive the animals out, and then their dogs hunt them. These dedicated, these brave individuals were helping a neighbor to fight a fire. It wasn't even fire on their own property. And what their colleagues who survived the fire indicated was that very quickly the conditions changed, and they found themselves in a situation where they couldn't run away or couldn't escape. One of the firefighters indicated that they tried to build what they call a safety ring. In other words, they get together and they build a ring around themselves, whether it is to cut the grass or to burn the grass. But even that proved ineffective. The wind started to swirl, and that itself became a danger to them. So there's a number of things that have to be taken into consideration. And if it is equipment, if it is under training, and then those people responsible must also be able to answer.
Mayor, just quickly, what do we know of any individuals that have been displaced?
So far, there's been no one that we've received. There's been no buildings that have been burnt as of last night. But what has been burnt is large tracts of land. When I left yesterday afternoon, there seems to only be 2 particular landowners that might have issues with feeding their animals. So that might be an issue that we have to tackle in the next few hours, next few days. We did this this last weekend as a municipality, but also the community was very generous. The whole Midlands community. We had nature reserves burn out, we had farms burn out in the Karkloof, and there was an overwhelming response to the need to provide feed for farm animals and wild animals. There were no lives lost last weekend, fortunately, but we'll continue to assess this morning as the sun comes up. We're very lucky that there has been some moisture overnight, which should help lessen the fire conditions over the next few days.
Thank you so much for your time. Chris Pappas is the Mayor of Umngeni Municipality. Appreciate your time.